Couple quick questions. This one's come up a few times. Thoughts on changing the movement speed slow to being shot while changing to area-based movement slow? We're working on tagging. We are the only hill we'll die on is when you get shot, you will be slowed, and it needs to be punitive. That doesn't mean the tuning we have today needs to be the final tuning. I know Coleman, that's actually something we've talked about a bunch in the balance discussion meetings is like tagging. And I think it's one of those things. How would you even track? Do you even have a way that, from a data standpoint, you would be able to track that, or is that still? Or are we still too early for that kind of thing?
Relatively balanced, right? The bad example of this would be like if the game starts and each side, flips a coin and it's just a 50-50. Theoretically, the game is balanced, but that's not very fun, right? So we also, on top of looking at actual data analytics, what's happening in the game, we also field consistent and regular surveys to gather opinions from the player base. And one of the things that we're gathering opinions on are things like tagging, things like movement accuracy, things like defender speaker's advantage, trying to understand how the broad player base feels about this stuff, and then being able to split that by region, by relative skill level, all that different stuff so that we can understand how the player base is feeling regardless of what the numbers say, and tune those things accordingly as well. So I think there's a very numbers-driven approach we could look at tagging to see like how often are people hit with bullets and escape engagements and stuff like that. But I think also we are also capturing like player sentiment on how you all feel about tagging, where you would sort of like it to be, and we take that into consideration as well.
What is the connection between alt orbs and the spike explosion? They look similar visually.
Yeah, Niles, what is that?
Yeah, Niles. Yeah, Niles. If he doesn't answer, he's fired. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, shit.
I can't
yeah, they are the same energy. They're radionite. The spike is... are we... Zach, do you want to talk about the narrative, what the spike is doing?
I sure don't.
Is it not time for that yet?
It's not time for that.
Okay, that's premature.
Spike is doing something. Spike isn't just exploding. It's actually not exploding.
But visually, we're actually intending for them to feel connected like that, though, right?
Correct. Yeah, they're one and the same energy, and that might pop up other places in the game soon.
Yeah, and so we are using that as an intentional link, but we can't tell you what that stuff is yet. All right.
Question: Overwatch is incredibly anti-stack to the point to where high-ranked players aren't even allowed to queue with more than 2. On the other hand, Rainbow Six full stacks at high ranks. You guys envisioning a stack-centric game, and if so, I don't know. Actually. I think playing as a stack is probably the best way to be able to make sure you can have strategy. But we know a lot of players are going to play in a pug format, so I'm not sure what our plans are for that. Yeah, it's a little early to tell. It's kind of like, I think we want to see, that's another thing where it's like, let's see what happens on that more than trying to over-design it.
It's something we're talking about and looking at a lot. We think it's an important thing to pick apart, but I think I think that view of it's worse than CSGO is overly simplified. I do think there are situations in which it is, and we're working on that. There's situations where I don't think it is, and I think it's kind of like, since it's so hard to kind of pin down, it's really it's really easy to go it's better or worse and kind of want to give it kind of a passing or failing grade, when I think it's like, there's some things that probably do need to be improved to better meet our commitments, but there's also some things that are like working as intended or even better. Some of it's about movement speed, animations, server stuff or internet stuff that I have no idea about. We're, on this team, we really don't understand too much about that. Like, we're not really on that kind of thing, but I wanted to talk a little bit about it. Finally, I got a good Mr. Gosicki question. How are the names of the maps chosen, Zach Betka?
They are chosen, one, there's a story obviously inside of the maps for the larger narrative of the game, but two, we try to pick names of the maps that deal with like a very obvious call out for them, so that if you see a name like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense for the map. An example being like Bind, is bound together by those teleporters. Split, because there's a very obvious environment art split between one side and the other. Haven, because it feels like this sort of like secluded getaway type of temple area. So just things that kind of aligned with some of the primary reads of the map.
And obviously, coming to Valorant, it's a totally different playing field with both teams playing both sides of the map as well as agents. So I mean, the short version of it is that we don't look at character win rates holistically. We actually do look at them by map, and also by side, and we have separate goals for what healthy looks like for all of those things. So on any given day, we're looking at basically character round win rates on attacker side, on defender side, on each map, and then we have goals for basically, hey, when you look at the entire map ecosystem in aggregate, what are our goals for what character win rates or like a generally healthy character ecosystem should look like in terms of power, and then what's a healthy amount of texture between the maps, because we do want different characters to be at different levels of power between maps. Otherwise, all maps could sort of feel samey. You should be thinking about which characters to pick on certain maps, certain sides. We don't want it to be too overbearing. So basically, at a high level, we capture enough data, and I talked a lot with Ryan and the rest of the design team to basically build our philosophy and what our goalposts would be for what we felt was healthy based off of our playing the game for a long time and having design goals around what we wanted our content to achieve. And then basically we look at those metrics every day on both the maps, sidedness, characters, and how those all intersect to make sure that they remain within those goalposts, basically. The interesting thing right now is a lot of players are learning the game, so everything's volatile. So things are moving around a lot just because players are all learning the game and the meta of the game is adapting. So it's something we'll continue to keep an eye on and make sure that it stays in a healthy state.
Buffed or change, anything for that matter. So I'm going to start this, and then I'm actually going to let some of the other people talk, because a lot of what we're talking about you saw in the last update and some other things that I know Niles has been working on. We're not meaning to change his power significantly. We might give him a tiny buff. It would be circumstantial. These are feel and experience changes. From my perspective, Omen's one of the characters we kind of wished we'd finished more of before we went into the beta state, so this is kind of us following through on that swing in a lot of ways. I don't know if you have anything you want to add about like some of the VFX or anything of like other than that, Niles.
Yeah, like as our art has kind of come along throughout the project, Omen was definitely one of the first ones we hit. So as we're doing these updates right now, we're kind of going back and taking a second pass on a lot of his abilities right now. So he'll have a decent little art update.
Wait, like can we switch between right?
No, as in like, so the other night Isaac was like, "Hey, why is every character right-handed?" And like I had my answers for it, and I assume it has something to do with like screen placement, UI, all that jazz, but I don't have a good answer. I would love you guys to help me.
So I think it's where I know a lot of people are asking about what's called left-handed view model, so you can just swap your gun over to the left. We want them all to use whatever you set is. Like right now we don't have a setting for it. We hear the players want that. I don't know who or when we're going to do that, but I think it's something we're interested in pursuing. It's more of a, I don't know who would do that even. Honestly, it's not us, weirdly. Mm-hmm. It's like game systems. Yeah. But it's something we know we'd want to do. Like, it's a clear ask. Do you think agents have to be a similar body type because you guys want to preserve competitive integrity? Absolutely. All agents use the same hitbox regardless of their model. All agents have a level of tolerance in which they may be empty within that hitbox. They can be smaller than that hitbox. They may not be larger than that hitbox. And nothing about them that looks like it should be shot can go out of that hitbox. Their head height must be the same. Their shoulder width must be the same. Their general visual acuity must be the same. Their shootable area must be the same. Their where their head stops and starts needs to be the same. Where their their torso and legs end need to be the same. It's very, 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 very tight. And the only reason it's not 100%, the reason we have any flex at all is because I don't think we can make cool characters without a little flex. I feel like if you guys see the artists on Twitter, like give them a huge round. And these guys have to go make cool looking stuff with none of the tools available, right? Go to Overwatch and you can make Reinhardt and you're like, why does Reinhardt feel powerful? You're like, dude's huge. It helps a lot, right? And we've taken all these tools away from them to preserve this player experience. And they've been troopers getting done with, and a lot of them get it. Like they understand why it's important, so it's not like this huge fight. But it's still hard, right?
They let people know what's going on. They let you know someone died. Headshots are that same exact thing, but a little cooler. That you get like the clean, the headshot, pentakills, I got the bomb, things like this. So what we never want is for a voice line to feel like it's more important than the moment, because it's not, and it never will be. It's more like, how is somebody feeling, and how can we say, we know you're feeling that way. Here's a line to celebrate that.
You got any thoughts about that,
Phoenix
Niles?
is just like, oh shit, you can do that too, which I love. Yeah, some serious, some fun.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and answer a different quick question from the Booty Bishop, who I also like to call the Keister Cardinal, or the Posterior Pontiff. But I think he wants to know about ragdolls. Please put in ragdolls. Sorry, I ruined ragdolls. We had ragdolls for a while. And then for gameplay reasons of having everybody have the exact same visibility of where a body is, and making it so that when you kill somebody, they're not going to fly off the map and then Sage can't res them. So for gameplay purity, sort of, and gameplay competitive integrity, we've not done ragdolls in favor of fixed death animations that will always predictably leave the corpse in a place that is valid for gameplay, if that makes sense. The effects now, so strap on. That was a weird. Strap in, strap in. Perhaps is what I meant to say. What about idle animations in Champion Select? Either John or Niles, you guys might want to talk a little about that.
What specifically is the question?
Having animations, not having a static, just like fixed pose within the character select.
Yeah, it's probably safer for John to take this one.
Okay.
So all I'll say right now is, like, we definitely are looking at the character select experience and want to try and make it as cool as possible. That's kind of the end of that statement.
I'm going to turn you up a little bit here. I know we want to do more though than the static poses we have now, right?
Yes,
yeah,
we definitely want to amp up the experience of going through, picking characters, what's that like, make it as cool as possible and as satisfying as possible.
Voice actress Ashley Birch is just an absolute star in that VO session. I think I cried multiple times in it. Like every line that she gives is like this incredible, viperous, forgive the pun, like toxic, poisonous, incredible delivery that I still like whenever she says some things. I'm like, oh, I love it.
Oh, here we go. Yay. Here we go. For the lore dude, that is you now. Sorry. Do any of the agents fall under the LGBTQ umbrella identifications?
Starting with the easy questions.
Yeah, I've had to dodge that for like 2 weeks because I don't know.
For sure.
So you get to
honestly, here's what I'd say, which is when we develop agents on this team, we look at everything about them, right? I think if you don't look at how an agent approaches life in every perspective, you're doing a disservice to the character that you could write, or doing a disservice to your artist by not giving them the information that they could. So looking at what I can say is every aspect and making good, authentic, respectful, and genuine decisions about it. Can I answer your question specifically? Definitely not, but we definitely do our due diligence to making sure that their full perspective is taken into account and answered.
That goes there.
To answer that question, we tried as hard as we could to make everything diegetic.
Nobody else knows what that is.
This goes here.
Really?
Yeah, that's. I didn't know what that word meant until you taught it to me.
Ah, damn. Okay.
Yes,
I love it.
It's for holding an angle, usually, and trying to get that first tap. Failing that tap.
He is